Okay, I have Nathan Marz with me. He is one of our keynote speakers. I'm gonna ask him about the JDD conference and about his presentation. I'm gonna start with the questions about the JDD. How do you like the event?
Well, it's really fun to come to Poland. It's my first time here. It's always fun to meet different communities of programmers and see how they're thinking about things. So that's been a lot of fun, and I think that Krakow is an awesome city. I'm really glad I got to visit, and I think the organizers of the conference have done a really great job putting on a really great conference.
How often are you a speaker at Java conferences? How often do you attend such conferences? And where is the JDD situated among those conferences?
I don't really attend that many Java conferences. At least not Java-specific conferences. I do go to a lot of conferences. Because of my background in work, I've mostly worked in the database, big data space. That tends to be the kinds of conferences I go to, as well as some of the more just like general conferences like GoTo and Strange Loop and things like that. Well, JDD just started, so I haven't had time to really situate it yet, but so far so good.
So apart from conferences, what you actually do? What's your normal job? What actually do you take care of?
Well, I've worked as a software engineer for about 5 years from now. 5 years. I've actually been programming since I was 9 years old. Most recently, I actually worked at Twitter, which I think is well known even in Poland. Worked there for about 1.5 years. I actually started one of the teams there, and I left Twitter about 6 months ago to start my own company.
I have read the abstract of your presentation, and we know that the presentation will be published on our YouTube profile. So to make it like an introduction, you are telling about how to check that your software is correct. Could you like make a short promotion of your lecture? What you are talking and how to make the attendees or people who didn't have the chance to come to the JDD to watch your presentation on YouTube? What are you focusing on what issues during the presentation?
Sure. Well, I think one of the most fundamental questions we deal with as programmers is how do you know your software is correct? And it turns out that that's an incredibly difficult question to answer and achieve. So what I do in my presentation is I contrast that question with the more general question of how do you know a proposition is true, which is actually a philosophical question. And it turns out that philosophers have been working on this question for hundreds and hundreds, actually thousands of years. And there's a whole field of philosophy called epistemology, which attempts to answer this question. It turns out that the techniques that epistemologists use completely mirror the techniques that we as software engineers have developed to check the correctness of our own code. So in my presentation, I explore both these questions. How do you know my software is correct? And how do I know a proposition is true? And I show how the techniques mirror each other. I think that having an understanding of these fundamentals can really help you be a better programmer. Because when you know the limits of what you can reason and what you can know, you can start to maybe design things in different ways to account for those limitations. And that's what I explore in my presentation.
You said that you worked for Twitter and now you have your own company. Many of the developers, they don't have an idea whether to work in a small company, whether to work in a corporation, or whether to have their own business. What's the difference for you, and which of those choices to go to the, for example, corporation or to choose your company, what would you recommend for them?
Well, it really depends on the person. I don't think you can always plan these things. I don't think you should go into life thinking, oh, I'm going to work for a big company for 5 years and then I'm going to quit and start my own company. That's not something you do. Entrepreneurship can't be scripted like that. For me, well, I can just tell you my own career path. When I graduated college in 2008, I went to work for startups. I joined one startup called Backtype, which was just 2 people at the time. It was 2 Canadian founders. And we did well, and we raised money, and we were eventually acquired by Twitter. And then I worked at Twitter for 1.5 years, and then I left to start my own company. I really like startups. It's kind of the work is very pure. There's not really people issues in a startup. It's just highly productive and highly focused, and you have a lot of freedom in how you solve your problems. Now, this freedom is like a double-edged sword, though, right? Because I think a lot of people need more guidance, need more mentorship, and you're not going to get that in a startup. You will get that in a bigger company. So that's what you need. A bigger company is probably more for you. But if you really thrive on freedom and making your own decisions and being able to figure out on your own what's important, working on a startup can be really, very rewarding. Now, when it comes time to starting your own company, like I said, that's not something you plan for. So for me, I just had this idea that burned at me. It was something I knew if I didn't do it, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. So I knew I had to start my own company. And personally, I'm not really afraid of, it's a big risk to start your own company. I mean, it's scary to suddenly not have an income anymore and to be completely responsible for your own success and your own future. It's something that I can personally handle. I don't think everyone can handle that. And so for those kinds of people, entrepreneurship's not for them. But if you have that burning idea and you can handle the stress of it, it's extremely rewarding.
At JDD, we have young developers and we have people who are more advanced or even DevOps. What rules should those young developers follow to be a very good specialist? Do you have like rules for them, what they should do, or I don't know, attend conferences, attend workshops? What rules, what advices do you have for them?
I guess I have two pieces of advice. Things that were personally huge for my own career and development, and things that can really benefit anyone. The first is to get involved with and contribute to open source. It's probably the best thing you can do as a programmer. You'll meet a lot of people by doing it. You'll collaborate with people all over the world. And work on open source also opens up opportunities for you to go out and speak and network and things like that. It's also, I think, more rewarding to contribute to open source because those contributions are forever. It's not hidden behind the walls of a company. So if you switch companies and move around as people do, you still have your open source contributions are there for everyone to see. The other thing that I think everyone should do is I'm a big advocate of writing a blog. It's something that's been hugely helpful for me. And my position is that you should write a blog even if you have no readers. The benefits it gives to yourself, like in terms of personal development, are so great, it doesn't matter if other people are reading it. What happens is, everyone has ideas all the time. And in your head, a lot of the ideas look really good. It's like, oh, that's a really good idea. And then when you actually put it down on paper and your ideas are looking back at you, suddenly you can see all the holes in your ideas. Like putting it on paper, it has that effect. And then that forces you to think through your ideas more, to mature your ideas and think through counter arguments. And finally, the process of trying to communicate your ideas to other people forces you to get into the mind of other people, which is very important. And it forces you to become a better communicator, which is something that you can get better with practice. A lot of people aren't good communicators, and it's just because they don't practice it. They're afraid of it. And programmers don't exist in a vacuum, right? I'd say actually more than half of what we do as software engineers is not programming. It's communicating with other people, communicating to our users how to use our software, understanding our users so that we make good software for them, communicating with the people we work with so that they understand our code and we understand their code. It's crucially important to become a good communicator. And one of the ways you can become better is to write a blog.
My last questions will be dedicated directly to the JDD conference. We always try to have some kind of a theme during the event to make every event different from each other. This time we have the JDD Galaxy and the restaurant or the bar at the edge of the galaxy. How do you feel about this theme? Does it make the conference different or more interesting for the attendees?
It's entertaining. I think it sets a good mood for the conference. What I like about JDD is it doesn't really have a corporate feel to it. A lot of conferences I attend to, like even in Silicon Valley, are very corporate and kind of boring. And JDD certainly is not boring, I can tell you that.
Okay. If you were to summarize JDD in one sentence, what would you say?
In one sentence.
I know this question is not easy because people always hesitate what to say. It's only one sentence.
Let me think for a second. JDD in one sentence. say it's a conference which is just as good as the Zapykanka you can find in Krakow.
Okay, thank you. I had Nathan Marz with me. Thank you for this short conversation. It's great to have you here in Krakow. I hope you will be back for the next editions of the JDD event. Thank you. Thank you.